It wasn't in the script for the trigger to be pulled.
Well, the trigger wasn't pulled. I didn't pull the trigger.
So you never pulled the trigger?
No. I would never point a gun at anyone and pull a trigger at them. Never. That was the training that I had. You don't point a gun at me and pull the trigger. On day one of my instruction in this business, people said to me, never take a gun and go click, 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 click.
Well, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, it's been a while since we've had this case on the docket, but it has popped up on today's docket because the FBI has conducted an analysis of the gun used by Alec Baldwin on the Rust movie set that caused the unfortunate death of Halyna Hutchins, making the determination that in order for the gun to have been fired, the trigger would have to have been pulled. And so, what does this mean, if anything, when Alec Baldwin says he didn't pull the trigger? Hi there, I'm Professor Blackmore and welcome back to my channel. And today I'm coming back to you with my answer to this question. And as far as I'm concerned, the FBI has revealed what we already knew, that in order for the gun used by Alec Baldwin on the movie set to fire, the trigger had to be pulled. But what does this mean? And does it have any dispositive value in the analysis of whether criminal charges will be brought against Alec Baldwin? Well, if you want to find out what I think, you better stick around. And if you want to get all caught up on the explosive details, no pun intended, of this case, please watch my prior videos, and I'll place a direct link in the description section below. Now, as you know, the director of photography, Halyna Hutchins, on the Rust movie set was killed, and director Joel Souza was injured when Alec Baldwin fired a gun on the set, causing a live bullet projectile to strike Halyna Hutchins and exit her body, entering the body of the director Joel Souza, causing him to suffer injuries as a result of the gunshot. So, I'm sure you've had time to view Alec Baldwin's ABC interview with George Stephanopoulos, and I would encourage you to watch it in full for yourself because, honey child, all I can say is after I watched it, I was totally exhausted because Alec Baldwin brought all of his acting skills, boo. But don't think I'm too tired to tell you what I think about this crazy mixed up mess. Now, before I go any further, I want to go ahead and say boldly and out front, for those of you who won't stick around until the end, until I put all of my facts and analysis into evidence, but who will still want to clap back at me in the comments, I want to make it clear that I absolutely do believe that Alec Baldwin was negligent, but only from a civil law perspective, not from a criminal law perspective. And even as disastrous as Alec Baldwin's interview is with George Stephanopoulos, I still do not believe that he is criminally negligent, even now that the FBI has refuted his claims that he did not pull the trigger. Now, I believe he's facing real exposure of multiple six-figure civil judgments and/or settlements. Now, when I first watched his ABC interview, I was of the mind that he was speaking against the better wishes of his attorneys because he was speaking in terms that displayed some blatant ignorance of basic things to such a mind-boggling degree. But then there were also times during the interview when you could tell that he had clearly been prepped by attorneys. They clearly wanted to get certain things out in an attempt to shift blame where needed to negate one or more elements of some of the potential civil negligence claims as well as any criminal allegations. But at the same time, it seemed that there was care taken to also make sure that Alec Baldwin did not run afoul of any criminal negligence or any finding of recklessness on the part of the prosecutor. And so I want to make a few points about the Alec Baldwin statement that he did not pull the trigger. So you'll remember when this incident first occurred, everyone kept referring to the event as a misfire. And at that time, I made the point that it was incorrect for everyone in the media to be using the term misfire. And so I'll say again, when you mistakenly fire a weapon that you later decide that you should not have fired, that's not in and of itself a misfire. And so even after Alec Baldwin stated that he never pulled the trigger, I'm even more sure now that that is exactly what we have here. A person who mistakenly fired a weapon that he later decided that he should not have fired, or that he did not intend to fire, i.e., that he fired a gun that he would not have fired had he previously known that there were live rounds in the gun. And that's just not a misfire. But as I can see, Alec Baldwin's attorneys would want to make this appear to be a misfire scenario nonetheless. But I don't think this was a gun that malfunctioned, and we clearly now know that it didn't malfunction to the point that the trigger pulled itself. And so this is clearly a situation wherein you pull the trigger on a gun that you did not know had live rounds in it. And so in my mind, if criminal charges will be brought at all, in this case, it will be against the person who had the responsibility of providing the ammunition to the movie production company. And in my opinion, the only thing to date that provides any sort of clarity on this question is the lawsuit filed by the armorer against the individual and the company that provided the ammo. Now, in one of my prior videos, I lay out at least 7 eye-raising facts revealed in the armorer's lawsuit, and I hope you'll review my prior video on this topic. But one of the things that I found interesting was the report of the use of what is called Starline brass ammo. Now, apparently, Starline Brass Ammo is a company that produces ammo brass casings that can be made into dummy, blank, or live ammunition by anyone with the knowledge and equipment to do so. In other words, potentially, a person can take previously live ammo in these casings and convert them into dummy or blank rounds, and presumably vice versa. Now, a person by the name of Seth Kinney and his company, PDQ Arm and Prop, provided ammo that was used on the set. It still remains to be seen if all of the ammo on the set came from PDQ, but we can draw 3 inferences from the detailed facts laid out in the armorer's lawsuit. Number 1, most of the ammo supplied to the set came from Seth Kinney and PDQ. Number 2, Seth Kinney used Starline brass ammo. And number 3, the round that killed Halyna Hutchins was from a Starline brass ammo casing. Now, that's a lot, okay? But much is being made about the fact that the armorer should have been able to recognize dummy rounds from live rounds. But in my opinion, if you have someone using their own equipment to convert previously live rounds into dummy rounds and or blank rounds and vice versa, we can't really say for certain what the rounds would have looked like, would have sounded like, or any other necessary facts about those rounds. And maybe it is that the FBI is doing an analysis on that part of the case as well. And so now none of us who don't know all of the facts can say for sure anything about the look, makeup, feel, or sound of the ammo in question until we have more information and possibly maybe even an analysis on this evidence completed by the FBI as well. And so the issue of whether the armorer should have known whether it was live ammo or not may not be as clear-cut as everybody thinks it should be at the present time. This is a fact that still remains to be wide open. But if this was a practice, the practice of taking this previously used ammo and converting it into live and dummy rounds and vice versa was a practice that was being carried out by the supplier, in my opinion, it is something that should have been made known to the movie's production team, and we don't know if that fact was made clear to the production team either. So, this is a critical fact, since the casing was the same as was known to be used by Seth Kenney, and it was the same type that caused the fatal shooting of Halyna Hutchins. Now, another eye-raising fact that was revealed in the armorer's lawsuit was that immediately after the gun was fired, during the time period before the law enforcement officials arrived on the scene, the armorer, Hannah Gutierrez Reed, claims that she asked the prop manager to check the rounds that were left in the box to see if there were other live rounds in the box, where she got the ammo that the armorer used to load into the gun. And the facts allege that Sarah, the prop manager, confirmed that there were other live rounds in the box of so-called dummy rounds. And even more eye-raising, law enforcement officials confirmed on the scene that there were in fact another 7 live rounds in the box of so-called dummy rounds. So, until you can get clarity on all of these points of interest, you can't conclusively establish anything about Alec Baldwin's criminal culpability. Because in my opinion, if you have a person who has taken on the liability of doing something as important as making dummy rounds by repurposing live rounds, and he does not advise his customer of this fact, and or that he had an operation wherein he could mistakenly mix up live rounds with dummy rounds, now you're getting into the neighborhood of reckless and negligent behavior conducted by anyone involved in such a practice. And so in my opinion, I see Alec Baldwin's actions on the set as still being on the level as those included in civil liability. But for criminal charges to be filed against Alec Baldwin, in my opinion, you would need a higher level of culpability. And I believe this even though the FBI has now established that Alec Baldwin must have actually pulled the trigger. Because this is a movie set where everybody on the set thought they were working with a gun, although real, everybody thought that the gun only contained dummy rounds and that only dummy rounds were used on the set. And then someone handed a gun to Alec Baldwin, and the person handing the gun to him declared that it was safe. And then you have the added fact, according to Alec Baldwin, and although the armorer states that she would have advised him otherwise, the deceased individual actually instructed Alec Baldwin to point the gun in the direction of the place on the set where she and other workers were standing. And I know it's a harsh fact, but you just can't get around that fact if true. But as you know on here, I just report and I'll let you decide. So what do you think? Do you think that the prosecutor will bring criminal charges against Alec Baldwin in this case? Please let me know by leaving your comments in the comments section below. And I hope you'll also give me a big thumbs up. And I want to also ask that you please subscribe to my YouTube channel and click the bell so you'll be notified whenever I come back with even further developments on this case. And please also follow me on TikTok and Instagram.